Before you go out and buy property, there's one hidden surprise that you need to be aware of. This hidden surprise caught us on our first property purchase. We were not expecting this hit to our budget. If you've never played the property game before, you may not even be aware of it. Welcome to Money Shape Up, where we help you build your money muscle so you can get money fit. I'm Linda Hamilton, author of Pay It in 5s. I'm here to share tips on how you can make money work for you. If that appeals to you, hit that subscribe button and make yourself a regular here. When we bought our first property, we thought we were ready to go. We had our deposit, we had a buffer, we had some extra money as well, just to be sure. And it's lucky that we did, because we needed it. Your lender will lend you up to 80% of the property value. Now, you might be thinking that the value of the property is what you paid for it. But no, that's actually not the case. The value is not how much you pay for the property. The value of the property is actually the amount that an independent valuator will come in and work out how much it's actually worth. So you have a price that you paid for the property, and then you have a price that the lender tells you that it's worth. And it could be less than what you pay for it. So when a home is valued at less than what you pay for it, and you can only borrow 80% of the value of the property, what does that mean for you? You need to have extra money on the side to be able to pay for the shortfall. You need your 20% deposit plus a little bit extra, just in case there's a shortfall in the value of the property that you're about to purchase. Now, this surprise caught us off guard. We were not expecting this at all, and we didn't even know that it was a thing. What we were not prepared for was a property valuation, and a property valuation that was lower than what we just paid for a property. So when our property was valued at $15,000 less than what we were paying for it, we were shocked, very shocked. And it's not a great feeling when your lender tells you it's worth less than what you just paid for it. Our problem was it was in a new estate, so it was being compared to older estates. So the value of our property was less than what we paid for it because of the older housing area that it was situated near. We knew that we couldn't buy a property cheaper than what we did and for the price that we paid. We weren't prepared for a lower valuation because we didn't even know what that meant. We'd never heard of it. The lender will tell you that they will lend you 80% of the value of the property. Well, what they don't say is that the value could be less than what you're paying for it. And why would they? Because they can just hit you up for mortgage insurance if you don't have more than a 20% deposit available. And how would you ever find out? No real estate's ever going to be telling you, hey, come and look at this beautiful property. It's going to be worth $20,000 less than what you're about to pay for it, but isn't it amazing? Well, no real estate agent has ever told us that before. If you're ready to take the next move to get strategic and plan before you buy a property, I've created a free masterclass to walk you through step by step how to start with your why so you can get laser focused on what you want. Comment below with the word masterclass and we'll send you the link. Let's get back into it. Here's what it looks like in practice. So let's say you buy a house for $400,000, and let's say an independent valuator comes in and tells the lender, look, they've bought the property for $400,000, but it's actually valued at $380,000. So they've paid $20,000 too much. Now your lender will take that and they will allow you to borrow 80% of the value of the property, which is 80% of $380,000, not 80% of $400,000. So that means you have to cover the $20,000 that wasn't covered under the value of the property. Remember that you already have the 20% deposit for the amount that you already paid for the property. So you just have to cover the 80% that wasn't covered there. In this case, there is a shortfall of $20,000, which means you would have to cover 80% of that shortfall. And that means you have to have extra money to cover that shortfall. In this example, it's 80% of $20,000. and 80% of $20,000 is $16,000. So you would need to pay an extra $16,000 that you weren't expecting to pay. Or if you can't pay that $16,000, then you would need to pay mortgage insurance. Our property was valued at $15,000 less than what we paid for it. We had to find an extra 80% of $15,000, which meant we had to pay an extra $12,000 that we were not expecting. We were lucky. We had a buffer, so we were able to handle the shortfall, and we didn't have to get mortgage insurance on top of our loan. Be prepared just in case your property is valued at less than what you pay for it. Then give yourself an extra buffer to be able to pay for a shortfall if that happens to you. Now, you might be wondering, how much extra should I be putting aside just in case there is a shortfall? It's useful to give yourself between 2 and 7% of what you pay for the property to have as a shortfall just in case you need it. And just for this scenario of a valuation being lower than you expect it to be. So, for example, if you're buying a property for $400,000, then a buffer of about $20,000 is quite useful. Now, if you're buying a property that's a bit more expensive than that, so $800,000 to $1 million, you still want to give yourself a buffer and give yourself at least 2%. 5% is a really good place to be, but at least 2% is useful. How often is it expected that there will be a shortfall in the valuation of a property that you purchase? They say in about 10% of properties, you could expect a shortfall. Now, 10% doesn't seem very much, but it might be higher in different situations. So, for example, if you have a declining market, then you could end up with more than 10% of properties getting a lower valuation. There might be other situations where there is a lower valuation. For example, you might end up in a situation like we had, where we had bought a property in a new estate and that property was compared to properties in the older estate. We were lucky. We were able to cover our shortfall, but it did eat into our buffer. It's just lucky that we had it there to begin with. We have since been adding our shortfall buffer to our other properties when we've been purchasing them. Luckily, we haven't needed it since, but it's added to the buffer that we have to be able to pay for other expenses that might come up. It is a shock to see a property valuation come in at less than what you pay for it, because you do question yourself about, did you make the right decision? Did you really pay too much? Before you go out and buy a property, just be aware that there are some surprises that might shock you. Surprises that you need to pay extra for, things that you might not be aware of. So when you buy a property, just make sure you have that little bit extra buffer. Give yourself between 2 and 7% of the price you're about to pay for the property, just to safeguard you against a lower valuation. This doesn't always happen, but it can happen. Now, they do say it's in 1 in 10 properties will have a lower valuation, but it could be higher and it depends on the situation. Just be ready for it, just in case. In the next video, we'll talk about other additional costs that come in when you buy property, so that you can be prepared when you go out and buy a property for yourself. If you are serious about buying in the next 6 to 12 months and you'd like to work directly with me to help you create a plan specifically for your situation, comment below with the word waitlist to make it happen. Before you go, because you've made it to the end, I would like to show my thanks with an exclusive offer for you. I launched Money Shape Up in 2025, and each month in 2025, I'm giving away a free copy of my book, Pay It In 5. If you'd like to win a copy, click on the link in the description and tell me what it was about this video that made you stay to the end. I believe in sharing knowledge and resources, and I love hearing stories on how this helps you. Happy house hunting, and see you again in just a moment.